enable this DApp processing on the network,
Hmm.
but also to enable, fast and instant and private transactions between individuals.
Okay, perfect. And so, David, so you are the co-founder and CEO of Trinity. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm the founder and the CEO. But
Awesome.
let's say, in a blockchain project, it's not necessarily post like CEO, CTO. It's more about, someone who's leading the project.
Yeah.
But we do have a for-profit company, and that's where I serve as CEO. Okay.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. And so I went through your white paper pretty intensely, and of course
Uh-huh.
I've been through Radins as well.
Uh-huh.
So one thing I wanted to talk about was your name and your logo. So obviously the Trinity name that comes from the Matrix theme, right? Where
Yes,
Neo
exactly.
and Trinity. So you have a background in of Neo, right? You were on Ant Shares, correct?
Yes, exactly, exactly. We started, as anxious back in 2014. I joined the team later, and we did token sale in 2016. I mean, that was like the time everything just getting started,
Yeah.
and yeah, and the anxious rebranded to Neo. Uh, I think in the summer last year.
Okay.
But I left about 2 months ago before the rebranding. So technically, I work for iShares. I have a, but not with Neo. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
but it's the same thing actually. Yeah.
Very cool. And how did the logo come about? The triangular logo.
Yeah, it's basically to mostly about to make it in accordance with the new logo. It looks like a match,
Yeah.
and because of the color, especially with the color, we thought Neo was a very bright green,
Hmm.
and I think a better match will be sort of like this pink, and because Trinity is a female image, and I mean, the two colors looks just bright and it makes people feel easy or happy, not too, let's say, uh, cold. You know.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure. For sure. Um, so you are in China right now. Is that correct?
Correct. We're in Shanghai.
Oh, you're in Shanghai. Okay. So how's the like the cryptocurrency and regulatory environment, impacting specifically Trinity and cryptocurrencies in general in China?
I think it's a very interesting thing right now because after we just passed the MPC and the CPPCC sessions in China. Those
Hmm.
two are basically you can consider the Chinese Congress annual convention,
Hmm.
and that's where people, especially people from the central government, talk about important policies regarding different respective industries, especially with blockchain is here, and we're seeing these representatives, consider them, congressmen, and we are seeing the remarks from the head of the central bank. All of them are saying, okay, blockchain technology is very promising. We are looking into it. It's gonna be having very deep impact with the society and the economy,
Hmm.
but we're not so sure with these tokens. Okay, I think it's a bit superficial because I think tokens are like natural and indispensable from
Hmm.
a block system. It's the accounting unit. But what they're saying is, okay, they are not happy with those, fraudulent, sometimes, many times fraudulent activities with ICOs, with token sales, and with the pump and dumps of these tokens on the secondary market, which is totally unregulated.
Right.
And so I think there will be several impacts after this. Okay, there'll be three things primarily. I think first thing, they will support the development of blockchain technology, set up foundations, different institutes, from investment side to policy side to
Very cool.
let's say cooperation with academia, with the government. But on the second thing will be they will be very harsh on exchanges.
Hmm.
They'll push the exchanges out of China. So basically, you cannot operate it here. We are not going to, let's say, push you very hard or pursue legal actions against you, but you have to comply. That is to get out. Basically means to not to provide services to Chinese citizens.
Right. So,
And the third thing is,
yep.
yeah, let me finish, please.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing will be that I think there will be some more serious actions against the people trying to do fraudulent ICOs and speculations on the secondary market. I think that's also a good thing to do. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And so one of the things I wanted to ask was,
Mm-hmm.
you were essentially like Raiden, Lightning, and I think Trinity. You required some sort of level of trust, right? Trusted network for this sidechain solution, correct? And people
Mm-hmm.
get paid to be a participant if they're processing transactions on the Trinity network. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
So can Chinese citizens participate in the Trinity network?
Of course, they can participate in the network.
Okay.
And because we don't consider those real people operating it. We can see them as just nodes. Okay, we eliminated the human part because we don't look at things like that. And to begin with, actually, we recommend, and that's where we focus on our English speaking community first. That is, we encourage more people outside of China to join the network and to set up their nodes and operate this network, which makes this network much more robust and strong. Yeah. And there will be a layer of censorship resistance thing here. Okay, so but on the other hand, when Chinese people operate a node here in China, they will be just fine. Just like when you use BitTorrent to download things. Mm-hmm. It's completely fine in China. And when you're operating as a node, you're actually just becoming passively sometimes, if possible in the future, passively becomes a part of the network. Not that you actively pursue to become payment service provider. And even that, as a payment service provider, it's not banned. So it's okay in China. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So a little bit about I was looking at the differences between Trinity, Raiden, and Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Trinity, you don't really require contracts. It doesn't require a special contract because a Neo requires 500 gas, correct?
Yes, exactly. So that's
how
the
that
current design with Neo. That's the current design with Neo. Mm-hmm. So when you establish a new channel, that's basically the service provider. The node is opening up a channel for you and keeping it open for you to participants, and it can last as long as you want. Because it's impossible to make it last forever. If you want to really use it, because there's an economic cap, right? You will lock down your liquidity as you make more transactions. So you're gonna have to conclude it sometime in the future. And regarding, I'm not sure why you're asking the difference with Raiden and Lightning. I think it's more different than Lightning, right. Because it's only serving for the transaction of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. But Raiden and us, we have to provide for certain DApps. They want to make their transaction efficiency better. They want to especially their transaction logic is very high frequency. They cannot make all those transactions on the mainnets. I'm not sure where Raiden is at the moment. Actually, I think I'll have time to visit them while I'm in Berlin. But we're just doing things in our own pace. Right. So right now, I think it's looking good on Neo network. Yeah.
So what are your views on the entire Neo design? Do you think it's good that they're allowed to have variable gas limits? It's kind of confusing sometimes because was gas initially meant to be on the exchanges, and they could essentially move up the gas. I think it's right now around 10 million, right? And now then they can move it up to around 100, right?
The new gas is capped at 100 million. Mm-hmm. and it will. I mean, for a very long time, it will remain a low supply. Because it's like generated at a decremental pace by every block. I mean, the original design, gas, is the utility token, and the Neo, which was Answer's before, is they call the controlling unit.
Right.
So that people, who are having Neo are primarily for voting and consensus participation, those things on the network, while the utility part is solely performed by gas. I mean, this design is actually, let's say I think it's good. I think it's good. People love it. We didn't see this before because when we just began and the mainnet was live, in back in 16, we found that many people, they just love and coins, which was later renamed to gas. So I think, the design is okay. And I'm not surprised that the gas, got listed separately under the exchanges because it is a very, it matches the very definition of a utility token.
Yeah.
But, recently SEC just said there's no utility token anymore. But let's just say, okay, the utility token, idea, it is the idea, but and shares and I mean Neo on the other hand is actually not very close to what we think as a utility token. It has more power to use, and yeah, so it's different.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So one of the things about Raiden that I found interesting, and the differences between Trinity is, so Raiden, they actually suggest if you're using large amounts of Ethereum, you use the main chain. You just use the Ethereum main chain. So is it the same thing with Trinity, that if there's large amounts of Neo that you want to transact?
I agree. Let's say you have to try to consider what's your transaction scenario. Okay.
Right.
So if you are really sending a lot of money at one time to your counterparty, I think you should use the mainnet as well, because it's obviously a very important financial transaction. Right, but let's say transactions like buying $2 coffees, like a very trivial transaction that does not serve financial purposes, but to transmit a DApp logic. Let's say I want to operate a certain instruction in a DApp, and that is performed in a transaction. I think this is what we consider garbage transaction. So you don't have to make it on the mainnet. So yeah, I think we share the very same idea.
All right, very cool, very cool. But the this is something that's a little bit different in Trinity, is that you also provide privacy using ZK snarks.
That's on the development. That's for the second stage. Okay. So for the first stage, that is the first half of this year, we will be releasing fully functional and usable versions for the users. That is a user app, okay, and also the SDK for the app developers to integrate network, so that they can leverage this technology to help them process on the mainnet. But in the second stage, we will look more into decentralization, into solutions to find a better routing algorithm to solve the current liquidity issue of the state channels, because you have to pay the deposits, and also solutions for better privacy protection. So that's for the second stage, which is the second half of this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and concerning that, since Ethereum they're looking into implementing ZK snarks, and I keep referring things to Ethereum and Raiden, but I feel like Neo is essentially a step above Ethereum. So if Neo implements ZK snarks,
we don't have to.
But you don't have to, right? Because you'll just literally be running off a side chain. Is that correct?
True, if Neo implements that, but I think it's very difficult because you have to basically change everything, the entire bottom layer chain. I don't think that's very of a viable solution. As far as I know, their focus is not with cryptography at the moment.
Okay.
It's not even with performance issue with a better on-chain scaling solution. Is actually with the consensus algorithm right now. They have to do some adoptions and the upgrades. So that is their focus. If I mean, we are in close contacts every day, so we will make sure that we don't do repeated works. Yeah.
Okay. So just to get a little bit of a glimpse of this, Trinity is primarily meant for Internet of Things, automated transactions and microtransactions, right? Where if you're and it requires a consensus algorithm or a consensus method or proof of assets, correct? So how does proof of assets fit into the Trinity network?
Actually, I don't think there is a consensus layer with network with a secondary network.
Okay.
But if you are saying, okay, the design of a fully autonomous network and the mechanisms to reward people and to basically drive out the wrongdoers and the reward people who are acting faithfully. I think that has to do with the design of this network, but I don't think it's a consensus we're talking about. Normally, a consensus is about how to maintain the ledger of the bottom layer chain. That's not something
correct.
their network.
So for example, for a participant, say I'm starting a business and I want to participate, and I send a large amount through the Trinity network, right? Through the Trinity protocol. So does it require consensus from the nodes on Trinity, or if it doesn't, if one node rejects it or one node does like something malicious, what exactly happens? Since there is no consensus algorithm.
So basically, it is fine because I mean, in the end of the day, you get to conclude this channel, right? So how it's concluded depends on the final state submitted to the mainnet. Right. So the final state is something that you can review. If you think the final state is wrong, you can just you can file a, I mean, you can stop it from getting settled. And if there's cryptographic evidence that you can win this let's see arbitrage, right? So if you are saying, okay, the amount of the final balance change is wrong, you can arbitrage and you can try to find the cryptographic evidence. I mean, the most important thing is that you don't get affected from malicious nodes that are sending wrong information. So with the design of the network, we'll make sure that, like I said previously, because currently the design makes, let's see, the current transaction visible to the node operator. So that anyway, for privacy issue, for security issue, we'll make this transaction. I mean, the transaction between two parties not operated by a single node. So bounce from one node to another, and so they will have to check and if the balance change is correct. On the other hand, the software, the user application is something that's you can download from our side. But if there's somebody who gains traction in the belief and the fan base, and they develop their own interface, that is totally okay. And this comes down to just like Bitcoin. Okay, you can download so many interfaces of Bitcoin wallets, but you have to know some of them could be malicious, and you only download it from the reputable ones, right? So yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, very cool, very cool. So does Trinity Network allow you to not only transfer Trinity tokens in Neo, but does it also let you do Neo base tokens as well?
For now, also NEP5 tokens.
Okay.
And very soon, even more than NEP5 tokens, other NEP tokens.
Oh, wow.
And actually works like the same, right? So you just signal that. So I mean, every UTXO assets and contracts assets on Neo blockchain.
Okay,
Yeah.
very cool. So what is the relationship between you guys and Ontology? Ontology is like an identification protocol that you've partnered with?
Ontology is very, very interesting, actually, I have to say. Even if the performance is not going to perform very well, I think, on the secondary market because it's a little bit overhyped. But if you come back and really look at the technology, it's actually very good. So it's not a competitor to Neo or Trinity. It's a very, it's a very important thing. It's a lacking element in this entire ecosystem. It's sort of like a service layer. Okay, so it helps to provide a unique ID for anything that exists in the real world or in the digital world. So with this unique number, you're basically making every bookkeeping unit of a certain asset a non-fungible token. Okay, and also simultaneously provides storage for the information of it, within the ontology network. I mean, that is very important because currently the storage space of a mainnet is so scarce and is so valuable. So basically, it doesn't allow you to store too much information, like even a 100-word, human readable language written description of the assets. But with ontology, you can do all of this. And so I think it's a service layer. It's a service layer, and which can be, used by any, outside networks, like Neo, like us, and like somebody else who is trying to do their own blockchain or their own secondary network. All of them can integrate with ontology. So right now, the chief strategist of ontology, okay, Ji Zhudong, he's our advisor, and actually we're working very closely. We are, basically in a same business compound. So we meet them every day and discuss this tech developments and progress. And so that when it becomes live, we will be among the first to see what we can do with them and, to enjoy its benefits. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So, are you guys apparently you guys are like very close all together, the Neo team, everyone's in Shanghai. Is that correct?
On this side, yes. There's some other compounds, and you see Ethereum people, Quantum people, Vision, and some other, entrepreneurs who are just get their business started, and and also people in universities that are doing researches. Yeah, I mean, it's quite a vibrant, situation here. I would say actually it's better than Hangzhou. I think this Shanghai is obviously the #1 city of blockchain in China. Yeah, Hangzhou has a lot more developers, but Shanghai has something more, like a capital. You got capital. You got people who are very familiar with regulation, with finance. So it's different. Yeah,
it's almost like San Francisco, right? It's just like a little hub of technology there.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So some more things now. Focusing on Trinity is, we're just looking at a lot of token economics and token structure. So, for example, once your ICO funds run out, are you able to capitalize on a little bit of, for example, the transaction fees or anything like that to help sustain the growth of Trinity?
So basically, okay, I can tell you, because we have promised our community that we will give them the reports on the finances, but it's not coming yet. But I can tell you we have used a very small amounts from the money we raised, so we can sustain it for a very long time. That's the first thing. And part of it is because that many of the bills are actually not going to be paid by Trinity Foundation, means the money raised, but paid by the profit company and myself. Just like last time in San Francisco, we had a party. I don't think this is the kind of thing that the foundation should be paying for. So I paid it myself. And sometimes if we are we include some contents that we're going to advertise for our company products, and and we have Trinity, and it's all on the same meetup. For example, the company will be paying for it. So I try to eliminate as much as possible the chances that we have to pay using the foundation money.
Right.
And second thing is with this money actually, if we run out like in a few years and we're not doing very well, I think actually yes, we can get part sustained by collecting transaction fees and by acting as a node ourselves. Actually, to begin with, we will be providing the service. We will be the most reliable, I think, node operator on the network, obviously. And yes, that does bring us some part of the revenue to continue. And yeah, that's the two reasons I think we'll be just fine. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So, and one of the ways that you are also expanding, business and partnerships is there's something called enterprise customization. Is that correct? So, can you talk?
Yes, exactly.
Can you talk to us a little bit about like what the fee is, and like if a company wants to come work with Trinity, how they're integrated into them? Has anyone reached out?
Actually, this is also so you can save asking me the partnerships. What are the partnerships I have right now? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so basically, right now we are cooperating with several sites on pilot projects, more advanced implementation of Trinity network, and on some other supporting peripheral ecosystem projects. All of them. So I mean, basically, how to say this? Okay, we are doing the work right now, but I don't want to release any information about it. I don't want to mention any names
Of course, yeah.
Certain partnerships before the product we are cooperating with is finished and ready to meet the market.
Very cool.
Okay, not like, because we want to do this very differently than some other projects, because everybody is saying, okay, we got a partnership today, we are in partnership with A today, B tomorrow, C the next day, and nothing comes out after that. Yeah. It's basically, that's all of it, and the bring for them in the community, and basically that's like exchange of their fans. We don't do that kind of things, and so that's why I say in San Francisco, when we announce something, that it is done. So yeah, that's the thing. And with that, we are providing an SDK, because right now we're running a pilot project. But after that, we'll be providing SDK for all users in certain industries. We have figured out how to provide for them. So when we provide this SDKs, and we'll hold meetups and even conferences in China and abroad, and to welcome the developers from a certain industry, and we'll hold the workshops altogether, teach them how to integrate and utilize the Trinity network. And when they choose to do so, utilize the Trinity network, we will help them on other fronts, say PR and finance, and also other strategic resources in China. So help them to get started if they're willing to use Trinity network. I mean, there's a lot of psychological burden for people. I mean, sometimes they tell us, okay, we just get familiar with Ethereum. We just figured out what Ethereum is. Yeah. And you're telling me that we're going to have to learn a new whole set of things. Sometimes we have to teach them. I think that's a better way at this stage. But later, if people are really lazy, maybe we can just do their part. Okay, they do their own product, and we help them sort out the blockchain part. That's where our company will take a service fee, of course. But I don't think it's a very good model. I want them to be able to look at the success of a certain pilot project and just learn it by themselves. So that's how this goes viral, instead of we doing all the hard labor. Yeah.
Do you think especially with you guys being on the Neo network, it's a huge barrier to entry to start an ICO, because it requires 500 gas to start a contract, right? So,
Hmm.
do you think that stifles innovation? You know, where Ethereum, it's essentially free. You know, where if I wanted to play around on the Neo network, I'm a developer myself, not a very good one, but I'm a developer myself. If I wanted to play around on the Neo network, on the live Neo network, I would have to spend 500 gas. Do you think that would stifle innovation, or what do you think about that?
I think you can deploy a contract on the testnet, and
Yeah.
that is you can get the test coins from the faucet,
Right.
so it is fine. And if you want to use the minutes, okay, here's the strategy and the idea of the founder of CEO and the founder of Neo,
Hmm.
Da Hongfei. So basically, we look at two. Okay, we look at Ethereum and we look at quantum.
Hmm.
You realize that there's gotta be some kind of control over the ICO, or let's say not control. Okay, setting up a threshold.
Hmm.
I have my own reservations regarding this, but let's say uh, I try to explain how they think. Okay,
Yeah.
so basically with Ethereum, you can do whatever you want, and but the problem is it's already got a massive network effect, so that even if the majority of these contracts are garbage, represent garbages, it is fine because people will be looking at the good ones.
Right.
But for Quantum, on the other hand, they have so many garbage projects. Okay, their own team, their own developers, complain to me that they don't even want to talk to these projects because they're just here to try to raise funds, and they're doing garbage projects. Okay, so uh, with Neo, I think the idea of the Neo Council or the founder is to set up a threshold. Okay, and so you're not going to be paying 500 gas or buying from 500 gas without knowing what you're doing, right?
Right.
So beforehand, you get in touch, you figure out what this is, and plan a thorough execution. So that increases the chances of a success, especially when Neo is just getting started, getting adopted, not like Ethereum. So they cannot afford to support a lot of garbages, otherwise the reputation goes down,
Right.
right? So I think it's understandable. It's understandable, and I think the price of gas is also understandable. Like I said,
Hmm.
it is not because it is simply because it will be remaining in a low supply for a very long time. But let's say a few years later, actually this supply goes up,
Hmm.
and actually you can I think the price will be stable at to say the least, not too scary when people look at it and they say, hey, oh, that's a lot of money to deploy a contract, right?
Right. For example, a lot of exchanges require Neo to be whole number, right? Where you have to send at least one Neo or
uh
1.1, right?
because yeah, the network design, Neo has no decimals,
Right.
so the minimum unit is one. Yeah.
Right. So with Trinity, the way that your scalability solution works is not only is it faster. How fast is it, by the way? If I wanted to, on this open beta that you have. Oh, by the way, you guys have an open beta. I want to talk
Yeah.
about that later. But how fast is it? If I wanted to send you something right now through the Trinity network, how fast is it?
Let's see, to begin with, that the first day of the user app launch,
Hmm.
our nodes will be providing at least 80,000 TPS,
Wow.
and our node alone, okay. And but let's say like I said, there's a huge difference with fully autonomous P2P network,
Hmm.
and let's see a network that is partially centralized, or
Hmm.
let's say just distributed to begin with. So there will be differences in the efficiency part, and so I can assure you it is very efficient in the beginning, because the construction and the ultimate design of Trinity Network will not be presented in June. It's just a usable version. So actually, it will be quite fast because we remain at control to some degree. And regarding what you're saying, I mean our token design, the
Hmm.
money. I want to talk about the unit. I want to talk about that because actually it is not to my satisfaction with our current units, because we listed like 1 billion, okay, and
Right.
that's how everybody does these days. But I mean, I think not now, not very soon, okay, but in like a year or 2 years, we will have to change this design, because when a lot of people are using Trinity Network and where they are paying the channel service fee, and they will be counting like a 0.0001
Yeah.
Trinity TNC. That's very difficult. I mean, we should be sort of like IOTA. That we provide a large quantity in numbers,
Hmm.
but the value of each unit is lower, so that it's easier for human to use it. Because when the price goes up, it will be looking quite not happy.
Yeah.
It's like people using MBTC or Satoshis these days, and soon this will be faced by Ethereum.
Yeah.
Luckily, they invented a lot of names. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking about the Trinity network and the
Mhm.
possible token design, and you said
Mhm.
80,000 transactions per second. So
Mhm.
as you know, Ethereum was completely clogged by CryptoKitties. So is there
Mhm.
a way, if someone wants to use Trinity Network and make a gaming or a trading card game like CryptoKitties, is there a way to reject certain transactions? Say, hey, like you're clogging up my network. This is like a bullcrap project. Please leave us alone. Like, is there a way to reject certain projects that or certain people that want to use the Trinity Network?
80,000 is a number to begin with, but the ultimate number is like I cannot describe, okay, because the minute somebody already saying, okay, they have million level TPS,
Wow.
but let's say they have million level, it's not gonna be enough for the app processing, and we'll be providing a lot much more number, much larger number than that, okay. And what you said with games, okay, so I cannot announce anything yet, but I think some partnerships and
Right.
pilot projects will be coming out very soon on that
Hmm.
front. And actually, we okay, I cannot share too much information about
No,
that, but
I understand. I completely understand.
yeah, yeah, but that is a very, very important direction we're working on,
Hmm.
especially if you try to, just pay attention to our blog and the media posting articles, and you understand what we're doing. Okay, but apart from that, okay, we cannot kick out a transaction that say, oh, you are clogging the network, and it is not the fault of the user or the app, it's the fault of the network that you cannot handle it. And let's say if you are using Trinity Network for the games, and you will have so many users that have so many transactions at the same time, but all of them will be reduced to two transactions on the minute, and uh, so that saves all the transactions in between, so makes the minute able to handle it. So I will give you a very simple idea of how that may look like in
Hmm.
detail. So basically, you can consider the life cycle
Hmm.
of the core game assets, which is a non-fungible token, make their life cycle within the same life cycle of a state channel. So that is to say, for example, you have a kitty. Let's use the case of the kitty. You have a kitty, and you open a transaction, open a state channel, and you can make as many changes to this kitty as you want, which is the gameplay itself. Okay, and all of these operations will be in the form of the transaction, right? So the network cannot handle it, but it's in a state channel, so it's fine. When you want to, basically withdraw these assets, withdraw this kitty from the network to get it traded, to sell it, for example,
Hmm.
you can, or you want to, make it into the next round of reproduction or gameplay, you can now conclude this state channel. So depending on the design of the game, you could be consuming like what you will be doing. Like if you don't use the state channel, there will be like 2 dozens or 3 dozens of transactions on the mainnet. but it is reduced to 2 transactions on the mainnet if you use a state channel, apart from all else. So that's how it will be looking like. And because most important thing right now is that most blockchain games, they haven't, let's see, outperformed the CryptoKitty, because they're still kitty folks, what I call kitty folks. They try their best to, just put up a better image and storyline, but the core design is still the same, okay, like CryptoKitty. Because if you know about games, the development is a very long and painful process. Right. So I don't think real innovation will come out so quickly after people see the debut of blockchain kitty, of CryptoKitty. So it will take some time. I would say at least a few months more. And that's when people start to look at the real innovations in blockchain gaming, and that's where you will understand that's why state channel is so much needed. Yeah.
Right. So speaking of that, I saw in the white paper. I'm not going to pretend I understood everything in the white paper, but it looked like you had 4 layers, right? You had 4 separate layers in the blockchain. So are all four of those going to be like a public ledger? Can I explore, what's going on in each of those? Or are they private chains? Are they private off-chain solutions? Or so can you explain to me a little bit about that? Because this is just for myself, really. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be able to monitor the topology of the network. You'll be able to tell how many nodes, how many people using it, and possibly how many channels are being operated, how many transactions can be performed, but you cannot see the details, which is who and who doing which transaction through which node. This kind of details will not be disclosed. It's impossible by design to be disclosed. And actually, we can provide an extra layer that's when you want to transact with a counterparty, but you want to protect your entity, you can actually hide yourself through something sort of like a VPN. And so when you go through that, then your alias or your avatar will be transacting on your behalf with the counterparty, so to better your privacy. The whole design is to make that it's a public network. If anybody can join and see how the rules are and how to continue, how to proceed, but to maximize the privacy protection. I think that is very important, especially given that we saw that so many more techniques coming out with dye analysis of the blockchain transactions. They're trying to associate transactions with your real world identity. That is a very dangerous move, but it's coming, and then people have their habits, right? I mean, I think most people will be using the same wallets accounts or even the same address repeatedly, right? Just like myself, to be honest. Sometimes that is to increase the credibility. So it is very important to protect your identity in certain circumstances.
So why not implement like a deterministic wallet? Like, for example, I think Coinbase uses a deterministic wallet, and several other exchanges have, so to prevent address reuse. Because I know address reuse is, would you consider that bad practice, address reuse? Or do you think it's okay?
I think reuse is bad. Yeah. Reuse is bad. You also hear news like quantum computer advances, like 72 qubits quantum computers, and they say 100 qubit is a supremacy threshold. And so, for example, if you read the article by Vitalik, I think back in 2013, that if you don't reuse your addresses, I mean, you use a new address every time, actually it protects you, and the address is partially, let's say, to a large degree, actually quantum resistant. But if you use an address to send transaction out and in repeatedly over 100 times, it will share too much information and make you quantum vulnerable. And not just that. I mean, with more transactions, more people and events are associated with you. So that's bad for security and privacy. So you should try to avoid that. Okay, but what I'm saying here is Trinity network as a secondary network is to protect the transactions happening. Okay,
Right.
with your own security, that's the wallet's duty. And yeah, our company has another wallet, but that's not the topic here today.
Right. For sure. For sure. And so you guys just launched your open beta. Can you tell
Hmm.
me a little bit about that? Is it going successful? How many signups?
Right now, more than a dozen people have successfully, set up their nodes and operating, and the more people are trying. But if you don't know the tech, you're not a developer and just trying to follow the instructions on the GitHub, it could be a little bit difficult.
Right.
And from what we're looking at, it's good. And but we were in communication with these people, but we also with because we ourselves are testing it, okay. But also with the community, developers, they are testing it. So we're in communication with them, and they're trying to find the problems we met, and solve them one by one. I think they will last longer, and before we deploy this on the mainnet, okay, because when you deploy on the mainnet, you try to eliminate as many possible bugs as possible, and because people could be trying to use it already if it's on the mainnet.
So
So
what is
yeah.
your code base? Like what is Trinity programmed in? Because I know Neo you could program in many different languages. So what is Trinity programmed in?
Right now it's in I think it's Python, and
Okay.
we're looking at options to possibly write it in Go in the future. Because we're looking at to sort of upgrade this entire network.
Yeah.
Because our vision has surpassed what we had at the very beginning. I would say that, okay. But yeah, we will talk about it in later announcements. But that's the idea. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And one last glaring question I had was, with private blockchains becoming bigger and bigger these days. For example, like Stellar's Hyperledger, where it's a centralized blockchain, right? Um, and they provide very quick speeds. I think a lot of the IBM guys with the Hyperledger, they provide very quick speeds, huge transaction thought output essentially, right? They're estimating that they will reach 1 million. I know a lot of people estimate that they will reach 1 million transactions per second, but what do you think about that? Because the fees there's no fees essentially; they're absolutely free. But you are compromising security because now you're completely centralized. So what do you think about that?
I got a question. Is Hyperledger really that popular in the West? Because
It
it's completely outdated and nobody gives a about them in China now. Because I think 2 years ago, I tell you, Angchen, which is the company behind Neo and Ansys, entered was the first member company of Hyperledger project in Fabric in China. And but after 2 years, everybody thought, okay, they are basically completely outdated. And very interestingly, because last night we were having a dinner with Tony from Ansys and from Neo and Xinshu from Zilliqa. We're talking about this, and they raised the same question, like everybody talking about Hyperledger, for example. So okay, both me and me have a consensus on this. That is, anything promoted by IBM is not going to be the mainstream adoption, because they just they do their best to complicate things.
Right. I agree.
There's some very talented developers, but when they are in the company and they do things, it's very complicated. That's one thing. That's from the historical experience. Second thing, with Hyperledger itself, the design is very, very bad. I can tell you the architecture is very, very bad. A lot of developers in China at the first glance say, hey, this is new. And that's because they learned blockchain for the first time. Second moment, they try to use it. Oh, this is completely not usable.
Yeah.
Okay. And on third note, okay, with private blockchains, I don't think that's a way to go, because even if you get a what they call mother chain child chain structure with ELF, with ontology, that will enable, also possibly with Polkadot, that you can do cross-chain interoperability. You can reach that through this kind of a structure. But I tell you, people who do private blockchains, they don't listen to your any guideline before they do it. If they have that notion in mind, they will not be doing private blockchain at all.
Right.
If they don't, okay, they'll just do based on their own experience and they try to make themselves happy. And they want to do cross-chain communication. They find they didn't follow any, kind of standards that's ELF sets, ontology sets, or any other project has set. So no cross-chain communication in the future, not as well. So I don't think that's a way to go. It's basically, if you want to do private databases, you can just do it, but don't call it a blockchain.
No, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, at that point, it's just API calls, right? And API calls are sufficient and fast enough, right?
Exactly. But on the other hand, I think in very certain circumstances, permission chains, or you call consortium chains, could exist, could be useful. Okay, for example, with China, if China central government, brings out a fiat currency, you can consider it basically on a consortium chain. The ledger will be a consortium chain between the central bank and the commercial banks. It will be very important for them. For outside people, for us, we're not even participants, so it's fine. Okay, we're not consensus nodes, but for them, there is an instant benefit because in last year, along with C2 News, that two cases. Okay, traditional commercial banks in China try to basically launch their own token, launch their own fiat currency. So basically, they have a fraudulent activity with their ledger. So in their ledger, in their balance sheet, they just made up of over 40 billion RMB. I'm sorry. Okay, wow. Just made it up so that they can launch. They can issue their own currency basically if they want. They want to take with the ledger. So if there's a consortium chain, central bank can control this and prevent this kind of thing from happening. I think that's a good thing. Okay, right. It's a minor regional improvement in the Stone Age fiat bank system, but it's an improvement anyway. But in the longer run, I think in 1 or 2 years, people will not be debating about private permission and fully public blockchains. This topic will totally disappear.
Yeah, and you asked that question. How popular is Hyperledger in the West? So, there was the Super Bowl is, right? The biggest watched event in the United States. And they had IBM had a blockchain commercial, promoting Hyperledger, right? And we're also still seeing things like Stellar, Stellar and Ripple, Ripple and Stellar, the centralized blockchains. They are partnered up with Hyperledger to try to implement, they're tokenizing Hyperledger essentially, right? So you're able to build a dApp onto the Stellar platform. So it is popular, but especially in the tight-knit cryptocurrency community in the United States, there's a lot of questions in the air, right? We know that this isn't the most efficient method, but it is popular because it is essentially, you're able to have a ton of transactions for absolutely free, but it's you're cutting corners, in system architecture. So I just wanted to answer that question. That it is popular, but I think it's dying down. Right. Yeah,
I believe so. Because if you are just looking for free, fast transactions, in China we use Alipay and WeChat Pay, and it's lightning fast. It's lightning fast every time. And because basically you scan the QR code, you push the button to pay it. Before you realized it, okay, it's done. So if you're just looking for that, the existing centralized technologies can help you already, but the reason you have to think about why you use a blockchain, right? And on the other hand, I have to say, okay, I remember there was a joke from 2 months ago when the market is in absolutely bull. So somebody asked, okay, I just entered the blockchain. I'm looking at 2 tokens. One is Ripple, the other one is Tron. Can you tell me how they are? The idea is that um, the idea is that we are seeing a lot of we call them air tokens. Okay,
Yeah.
there's tokens, their teams. I don't think they are fraudulent. I think they are just going in the wrong direction. And there are people who don't really understand the technology are following them. Okay, but gradually this is gonna be just a small footnote in the history. Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree. I think there's going to be a lot of changes in 2018, and we're going to see a lot of projects essentially disappear. And I wanted to round out the interview with something more personal. So, what's your
Uh-huh.
favorite? What's your favorite American movie or Hollywood movie? Yeah. What's your favorite Hollywood movie?
You want to make me see The Matrix?
The Matrix?
Uh,
Is it The Matrix?
uh, yeah, but no, not actually, not The Matrix. Yeah, I kind of like I personally prefer, Tom Cruise, The Age of Tomorrow. I love the movie personally because I seen the comics.
Yeah.
It's the original Japanese version first, and I like that kind of story because we're in the era trying to, basically having issues and huge advancements, but also challenges with self-recognition,
Yeah.
with basically how to set yourself in the world and how the world should be. So this is a new generation. This is the new internet generation. I think it's worldwide. It's the same. So I think it's very important to be sober all the time. Not sober that you don't drink alcohol, but
Right.
sober that you know what's going on and what could happen, and be prepared for it. And so I think actually we see a very good momentum. When I travel in U.S., I mean, and in China, we see young people talking about blockchain already. But more importantly, we are not just seeing people talking about blockchain. Hey, it makes me money. I can invest in a token and it goes 10 times, 20 times next day. No, they are actually talking about why would we have this? Why should we have this? And what does it have to do with our life? So I think
Absolutely.
it's a very good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, speaking from experience, going to a lot of these blockchain conferences, it gets a little
Hmm.
embarrassing sometimes because here in the West, there people are getting smarter. People are getting smarter, but there's a lot more new people coming in, right? So they'll like I was at a conference and there was a technologist. I forgot who the speaker was, but they were like, "Hey, where do you see Bitcoin in 5 years?" That was the number one question everybody asks. What price do you think Bitcoin's going to be? And instead of talking about the technology, and that's kind of frustrating because especially with people like I've been involved in the space since 2012, and I'm all about the technology. And of course, it's a bottom line. I like making money as well. But going to these conferences, it's kind of weird. These guys don't know where Bitcoin's going to be in 5 years. No one knows really, right?
It's okay. It's okay. I think it's same here in China. Everybody asking. Okay, even in our own community, sometimes I think in every other community, when Lambo, when Moon, where are
Yeah,
you now
when
pumping?
moon. Yeah,
You pump, and I know when to sell. Okay, please. I totally understand these people, possibly because they have to think of, oh, I have to clear my position before payday. But I think gradually they will come to understand that the technology is still the technology. They have to learn because the biggest ignorance, the biggest arrogance is not that you don't know anything or you're not rich, but you reject to learn. And I think that's the same. That same thing applies to many people. And so, well, they will have to figure it out, and they will pay the price if no, they don't do it right. Because we're seeing some very, I call air tokens, air projects,
yeah,
having a
absolutely.
large community and talking about it very happy every day. They don't even try to open up their GitHub page because when they try to, there's none.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, essentially, it's essentially yeah, vaporware. And one last tricky question is, I know Neo and Trinity go hand in hand, Raiden and Ethereum go hand in hand, but other than Ethereum, what do you think is Neo's biggest uh, platform
Challenger.
competitors? Yeah,
Uh huh.
competitors. Like you didn't like Qtum. I heard you didn't like Qtum. I know Cardano and EOS are pipe dreams right now. No, they have nothing released. But what do you think about other things like? like Komodo and other
Uh,
platforms?
Let me tell you about this. So first thing, I don't think Ethereum and Rhythm go hand in hand, and I don't think Neo and Trinity go hand in hand. That's like that's sometimes I know you were what you're trying to describe, but
Hmm.
it's the company world mentality that two companies work cooperate together. It's the open source world. Ethereum can choose any other network, any
Okay.
other solution.
Right.
That's not Ethereum choosing it. That's not the consensus nodes or the miners voting on it.
That's the
That's the
consumer.
users and developers, yeah, deciding on that. Same goes with Neo. So first thing is that. Second thing, I think with Neo itself as a blockchain platform
Hmm.
or computation ledger, and I heard a new theory yesterday that it can be a platform to issue IOUs, IOU, tradings,
Hmm.
IOU tokens for projects who haven't delivered their minutes. I mean, whatever classification. I think the Neo is facing some challenges, of course, but not from platforms like Cardano or Quantum. Personally, I like Quantum, by the way. I just don't like those projects on Quantum. Acceptably, okay. With some newcomers, I think in June, EOS
Hmm.
and Zika will be two very strong contenders to be honest, because they are the I mean a new generation of design, and
Right.
they will be providing a very good transaction throughput at the very beginning. I don't think US can reach a million to begin with. Okay, if they can reach 10,000, that would be fantastic.
Right.
I think Zilliqa will be be able to provide that level of transaction throughput in the
Right.
beginning as well. So I mean that's a whole new level compared to Ethereum and the Neo. And we'll have to see how that goes.
Right.
But Neo community is actually much more stronger than most people know.
Hmm.
So I think the recent turmoil is okay. It's okay. It's nothing.
Yeah.
And we are actually discussing with Neo team every day. So we try to help them if necessary, and also others too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today, David Lee. Uh, I'll put your information in the comment below. If you guys just tuned in, this was an interview with the Trinity CEO, David. Thank you so much for joining me. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right. Bye. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that was David Lee of Trinity Network. So I really do appreciate him joining us on the channel here. So thanks again, guys. This is Snabot at Cryptosomniac.com. I realize you guys can't see me, but the webcam can only take XSplit or Skype. So I apologize for that. And thanks again for watching, guys.